Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. So now we learned a few things. We learned how we can now connect personal laptops also to the conference network and use our own presentations. Hope everybody enjoyed lunch and could have a little bit of chatting and networking and distracting from daily life or from, I don't know, whatever stress that you might have had before the lunch today. Welcome back. Great to see you again. So if anybody is also outside and is interested still to check in for this session, we would be very happy to have you. Because afterwards, if you're not here, then we're not going to answer your questions. So I'm very happy to share this panel today with awesome Sarah and Liat from France and from Israel. So it's going to be a very diverse panel with diverse dynamic topics and discussions. As you might have seen on the agenda, we are going to talk about the legal and compliance challenges in the light of decentralization. Specifically, we are going to focus on NFTs and metaverse today. So I personally am going through the NFT topic and then see what are the challenges, what have been the developments throughout the past years, and also Sarah and Liat are going to look at the legal and compliance sides of metaverse, and especially the commercialization parts, because whatever trends that is coming up and people start discovering it and making money out of it, then we know wherever nice amounts of money flows, then legal issues come up, criminals find their way into it, fraudulent behaviors, and many things that we normally do not like to see, but actually that's how lawyers make money. So therefore we need to learn and know about all of these things before it gets too late. Because as our friends in the previous panel mentioned also correctly, and I think it was Churk as well who said legal industry is always behind with technology and trends. Because, you know, enacting new laws take ages, and somehow if everybody waits for the new laws to be enacted, then actually we will be passing the train while it's just passing us by. Therefore, we decided to do this educational panel as well. I did it the first time last January in Dubai, and I think it was maybe one of the first physical events where I launched the topic of NFTs, especially for lawyers. And since then, I have been educating also law firms and legal professionals on the topic so that they can also treat and maintain their clientele in the areas. So as I just said, the shift has happened from the universe to metaverse. A lot of people are somehow scared or they're stressed out and say, we don't want something to come and take us even more further away from the normal life or from the reality. But actually, this is not going to be a replacement. It is going to be a parallel life. It is the same stress that people had as Uber rised and everybody thought, oh God, now it's time for taxi drivers to strike, as Airbnb came and everybody thought, oh, now the hotel industry will die. But at the end of the day, there was a way of, you know, coexistence of all these models together. So we still see taxis industries, we still see hotels running, but we are actually also satisfying other people's taste and preferences by having these disruptive models of, for example, Uber and Airbnb. So they were like the examples in the physical world, but now, just to calm down those people who have already dealt with this stress that we don't want to leave the real world, so why everything is going to become digital, it is happening. And it's going to be parallel, and we still have the choice. But, of course, in a couple of years, probably we all have also a flat in the metaverse, and we all have like our law firms also based there. We are all having our avatars, having our client meetings, and workshops also taking place in metaverse, as it has been already taken place massively. So maybe by a short way of introduction, if you would like to maybe quickly introduce yourself before then I go to my topic, and then we circulate the topics, and then after each one of us cover one specific topic, we will be having also a panel discussion and of course covering the questions from you awesome people here. Sarah, if you want to maybe say a few words to yourself, I think we have enough mics as well so that we don't turn it on. Let's go.
Wonderful, yeah. So hi everyone, my name is Sarah Levasseur. I'm working as a privacy legal counsel consultant for Capgemini. And I've been wondering how privacy is going to evolve in the next coming years in the metaverse. So I'm glad to be here with you today.
Maybe a big round of applause for Sarah.
Hi, hello everybody. My name is Liad Galili Perel. I'm an advocate from Israel. I have an IP firm and a legal firm in Israel. We basically represent startup companies, entrepreneurs, industrial companies. When it comes to IP, we do IP registrations, prosecution, litigation, arbitration, mediation, everything around IP, intellectual property. And I will be speaking about that in the metaverse.
Awesome. You can keep the mic. Thank you so much. Actually, Liat joined us just on short notice because one of our speakers had to cancel due to COVID, and now we have her. So that's called courage. Welcome, thank you so much. So let's get into this NFT thing a little bit, right? And I personally, by means of introduction, also two sentences about myself, not to be too humble today. My name is Erwin Tawakoli, based in Zurich, Switzerland. I'm a lawyer, business advisor, and NFT enthusiast, educator, collector, creator, curator, and connector as well in the area. So it's been now almost 2 years that I fell in love with the area, and now nobody can take me out of it, even by force, and I'm enjoying it, but at the same time, I enjoy sharing value and educating others and raising awareness, especially in the legal industry, because I think we all need it, and at the end of the day, by means of something is not working right. But thank you so much. And at the end of the day, by means of educating and helping each other and connecting and collaborating, we can all rise and grow our practices and also our personalities. So let us take a look at this area. Why I put just a picture of an athlete out there? Because for a lot of people, they think, yeah, by means of getting familiar or discussing NFTs, we're specifically or exclusively talking about art. But I just started with the start slide with an athlete to show the diversity and to demonstrate how big this market is in and how large and vast this area is for everyone to enter. Can anyone here maybe give me a quick definition of NFTs or non-fungible tokens? I already said for what it stands, but maybe we have it already here, but if you say the same, I know it, so try to be creative.
It's an asset on the blockchain. It's individual. You can't swap one for another.
Awesome. It is individual, but you know, this mic can be individual as well, but I can still swap it. Could you maybe tell us why, what would make it so unique?
It has a unique entry on the blockchain. So that although, for instance, an image could be used twice on an NFT, the entry on the blockchain itself could be replicated.
Let's say the entry or those codes, right? The whole token is a series of codes. And that is actually what differentiates NFTs from, let's say, coins, right? Because if you have like 2 Bitcoins, if you have 2 Ethereums, you can still exchange it with another 2 Ethereums or another Bitcoin. If you have $100, you can still exchange it with another $100. But if you have an NFT, that unique, irreplaceable, irreplicable digital asset, which is backed by a series of codes, digital codes, that cannot be replicated or replaced, even if, as our friend said, even if they are like in countless editions. Like maybe if you have 1,000 editions of one NFT or one image, still the codes underlying each and every one of those assets is unique, and it's also the proof of authentication. For many people that they're coming up with the question, when I have an NFT, what am I owning? It is like the certificate of authentication of your Rolex or your personalized handmade Rolls Royce. You have that certificate and nothing else can replace it. And that certificate is a kind of representation or an entry code or access to that physical asset that you have. It can be that car, it can be that awesome watch, but you need a certificate of authentication. So the NFT as such serves as that certificate of authentication, and that is something that can already answer the question of ownership, for example, because that is still a lot discussed. What am I owning? So you're not investing in the air, you're investing in a series of codes that is provable, authenticated, and it's representing and accessing the assets that you have. And the awesome thing, as I was actually talking during lunchtime with Chirk, was he was talking about a client of his and said he's an art collector, a very wealthy person, but something that has been always his wish was to make his art collection accessible to others as well, right? So he helped him create like a kind of exhibition or so that people also can come, some younger people who cannot afford maybe owning one of those artworks, they can also just come and watch and enjoy, and maybe one day they can get inspired to own one of those. But now, with NFTs, you go like 100 steps further, because you even trespass the dimension of time and space. That client of Chirk, he can only open that exhibition doors in his hometown or in the same location that that exhibition is opened or established. But once you're owning an NFT collection, this is your smartphone, you're sitting on the train, you're talking to someone, you have that interesting discussion and say, you know what, actually maybe we could do business with each other. I own an art collection. Excuse me. And then it's right there accessible and you can represent it right there. You can even trade it within seconds. So these are like the things that have made the whole area so accessible, understandable. Once you start learning it, it's very understandable. At the beginning, it feels like something very messy and very like, you cannot touch it. I know a lot of people that say, I only invest in something I can touch. And they're scared that this thing, they just get vanished or disappeared or something. And maybe when we get to those technical parts and the data privacy, then, and also there will be a lot of challenges in the metaverse, including the NFTs with regards to the protection of this authentication, the brands, the intellectual properties, and how they can apply also to the digital world. These are actually the criteria of what is a non-fungible, and our friend helped us with it actually, and we went through that as well. And of course, a little short background, why NFTs and why they suddenly took over the market with those massive astronomical numbers that I will show you in a few seconds is, in the lights of the COVID, social distancing, restrictions, problems for people to travel, to meet, to socialize, and to connect and collaborate. So, we have a saying in Persian, and I think in German as well, which says, crisis is the mother of creativity. We had COVID as the crisis, and actually the whole rise of blockchain, because blockchain have existed already for a long time, but it never came to that level that people started getting attracted by it, starting educating themselves, earning money, making money, losing money, and also creating a market for lawyers. And of course, for each and every one of these transactions, there are different platforms. The major ones are as listed here. The largest one, actually, with almost 96% of market share, is on the first place, which is called OpenSea. And there, I will maybe discuss about some of the data privacy issues as well with our friends when we start a panel. And a lot of people are asking how these platforms are earning money. Yeah, it's commission-based, because NFTs are not being traded just free of charge, just like that. Yes, there is no middleman actually needed. You don't need necessarily an auctionist or a gallerist or exhibitionist or an advisor in between to facilitate the deals for you, but you need a platform, where these transactions are also registered and they are trackable and traceable and provable. So this is how these platforms are serving the market, and this is how they're earning their billions, actually. From out of each transaction, they're earning a share from the exchanges, from even minting the work, which is called the process of registration of the work, from the process of burning the work, which is called destroying and removing that token, or from the exchanging or trading that work. So each time you get like a commission, which is called, in the world of NFT transaction, gas fee. Some of you may know this spectacular transaction of last year for $69 million, which has been by now still the most, let's say, pricey or valuable transaction of last year by Beeple. And then we have some facts and figures to just figure out what kind of volumes and what kind of levels are we talking about, and why it is important for legal professionals and lawyers to know about this. Because in the world outside, I mean in the physical world, also in the previous panel, we were talking about money launderings, I mean all this AML stuff, and then cryptos, the crimes and the fraudulent behaviors related to the cryptos, but crypto is actually also the same currency that is being used for trading NFTs, or all digital assets as well. And we see already the volumes in the market, and when we see this kind of numbers, it opens up already doors or incentives for criminals, scammers, and fraudulent people to also enter the market. And actually that is what a healthy market is. You know, at the beginning, like 2 years ago, when the whole market was very fresh and there were just a very limited numbers of creators and collectors in the markets of NFTs, the whole thing was still very transparent. People had a very clear network, and if somebody was doing something wrong, everybody knew about it, and that person was somehow banned from the community. But nowadays, it is growing, and that is actually how normally markets become real and healthy. And when a market grows, competition grows, crisis comes, fraudulent, criminal, and everything will come up. So just going through this very quickly, a lot of people are asking why this boring, ugly, some people say ugly, some people really love them. Why are they valued for millions? Yeah, we will go through that aspect of community. What brings people together in blockchain, metaverse, and specifically NFTs is that people gather around the same value, the same taste, or the same purpose. This Bored Ape has become now the premium community of NFTs, where we see a lot of celebrities called Madonna, Snoop Dogg, Justin Bieber, Eminem, Jimmy Fallon. They all got their piece, and that brings them together. And it was exactly last year that they established also that Bored Ape Yacht Club in Miami. So now everybody who's having that ape, that NFT of this ape, has also a kind of access code as his club membership. So that is how this community is built. And you know, that community does large volumes of business with each other and a lot of other things. So that is the second major project, the CryptoPunks. They were also like 2-3 years ago, people were like exchanging amongst one another as gifts or presents, or just as something like, hey, do you want to have this card for yourself? Do you want to have this image? But nowadays, look at the numbers. Why they're so attractive? I just made a very summarized list here. You know, the whole non-censorship ownership, the irreplicable, copyright protected, and at the same time risky ownership. And of course, it is on the decentralized platform. Things can go very fast. You don't need a middleman. You don't pay a bank to do things. Transactions take place within seconds. Things are very doable, as I said, regardless of the dimensions of time and space, of course. And one major thing that it made it at the beginning very attractive, because the whole wave started with the artist, was, have you ever heard in your families, or especially from your parents, that you can make no bread or can make no money with art? Come on, you heard it, you're smiling, yeah. Maybe many of you, before going to law school, maybe you were thinking about becoming an artist or go to become a musician or start playing a, I don't know, music instrument. And definitely your parents told you, come on, go for law, go for finance, go for medicine. There is no money in art. There is no bread in art. And actually, one of the main incentives, what made this movement so attractive was removing the perception of the starving artist, so that we do not have many more Van Goghs. So we do not have many of them that afterwards, like their grandchildren, they become multimillionaire and they themselves spend their last years of lives in psycho clinics or being considered as crazy and so on and so forth. So that was the main thing. And then it helped artists to enter the market without anybody in between, so that they earn everything. How many of you know how much the musicians are earning from their tracks on Spotify or Apple Music? Do you know what is the percentage that they're earning? Per click or per play? It is almost nothing. It's about cents. It's not even about dollars, you know? But those giants are somehow removed when now music industry has found its way into the NFT market, because the artist owns it all. Yes, the platform is taking a little bit, but it's not comparable to what we are talking about in Spotify or Apple Music or any other label or record companies. So that is another asset for the artists as well. And when you have that asset, once you buy it, you know what you can do with it afterwards? What can you do with an asset that you own? What? Create it? Trade it, yeah, you can resell it, yes. So this market, this flow just continues. And you know what happens with NFTs every time you trade it? You make money, and who else? Who else make money? Yes, yes. The first creator, the initial creator. I mean, if I create an artwork, not only an artwork, because the NFT is now so vast, it's no longer limited to art. If I create a token, an asset, and you buy it from me, and you sell it to Linat, I get a royalty fee. No matter how many times this asset is being traded, for eternity, that artist is going to be paid automatically through that smart contract on his wallet for the end of times, not for the end of his life. Again, another attractive point to remove that perception of starving artists. And a lot of artists have made a lot of money actually the past 2-3 years, and let's say the art industry is very happy. Of course, a lot of auctionists or gallerists are not very happy, but they saw the opportunity and now they have entered massively. Christie's, Sotheby's, they are now running the hugest NFT tradings as well themselves. So yeah, these are also the things that we pointed out: authentication, ownership, what is the status. You know, how many of you have been into like art market or art law, or are you maybe still in? Sure, come on, I know you're in, so why your hand is down? So, yeah. Who else? But you know what is, I mean, imagine your client is coming up to you, he's an art collector or an art investor, and is interested in buying an artwork. And what is that very important aspect that you need to clarify as compliance expert or as legal?
Copyright.
And, yeah, copyright as well, if it's original, and? Trademark, it's rather for the names, right? I mean, we have an IP expert. No, for the artwork. Authenticity, correct, and? Yeah, what is the background? Was it stolen? You know? Is it like kind of, are you authorized to own it and sell it and trade it? And this compliance check or the background check, I think it was 2 years ago that Prince Salman bought that artwork allegedly by Da Vinci for 400 million. And there was a risk, and they told him there's like 5% risk that this work is not from Da Vinci. And he said, I take the risk and I buy it. And it was very funny. I liked him actually for that. That was really risky, but there was no way to really clarify or to close that 5% gap. But you know, that is what we don't have on blockchain. Everything is documented, everything is traceable, every trade is being recorded there. So there is a kind of history. Whatever token that you have, that you're interested in, you can go and quickly click on history and you see, who was the first owner, who was the creator, who owned it then, at what time, for how much, who offered X amount, and whether that offer was accepted or rejected or expired, you know, or even some fake collections that they have been removed from the blockchain as well. So everything is recorded there. That's why we call it even trustless, because everything is just there, right? 4 most important components in the world of NFTs. I mentioned the first at the beginning while talking about Bored Apes: community. And that was actually something that, again, was a consequence of the whole COVID issues, because people were missing those gatherings, those socializing, those community-based networks, groups, and you know, we human beings are social animal, so take us away to any kind of lonely island, we get back again, we want to be amongst people. Community. And the other thing is liquidity. You know, if you want to go and check out a project and you want to invest in it, you just check it on the blockchain and see, okay, how much was the trade volume of this project? Is that a profitable project to invest in? And then you see the liquidity. And then utility is something that has come very trendy in the world of NFTs. At the beginning, everybody was saying, I just buy it because it's nice. So that is just artwork, and I buy it. But now with the Bored Apes, they have created utilities, club memberships, events, now brands, sweatshirts, I don't know, cars, jewels. CryptoPunks were just made by Tiffany as the jewelry stuff for, I don't know, they made a sales of in 20 minutes for 12.5 million just to trade all this little like necklaces with the CryptoPunks. So that is how also the utilities works. You see, what am I getting if I'm getting this work? I'm not only buying this painting for the sake of hanging it on my wall or in my wallet. What is coming afterwards? And rarity, yes, that is actually the non-fungibility. So I'm not here to do whatever I don't want to do. I'm here to help. We're not here to convince or to give financial advices or anything. We're just here to educate each other. I mentioned a few points, and then we come to our other panelists, because just point out the major legal challenges. And this funny cat lawyer that you see here, it was a token created for me by an artist group that I was helping them with their contracts, because that has been something that I've been doing now for the past 2 years. I've been advising and supporting also creators and collectors on their legal stuff, drafting contracts for them, advising them on the whole like business and the legal cases. And sometimes, besides the fees, I get a present as well. That's I get a non-fungible token for myself. And they knew that I had a cat that I loved, and he passed away. So they created the cat lawyer for me, and that was very funny. So it was like my profile picture for a while. And that was also the answer to a lot of people that they were saying, oh, this is just a JPEG. I said, yeah, you see just a JPEG, but try to sell it. I am only entitled to sell it or own it. It is like, I think it was a very nice answer of Gary Vee, as somebody told him, oh, all of these things that you're having, are not of value. I can also take a PDF, or I can take a screenshot, and then it's mine. And he said, no, but go try to sell it. Go take a screenshot or take a selfie with yourself on Louvre. Louvre does not belong to you. Go take a screenshot of Mona Lisa. Who's paying for that? The main value is that authentic, original work. So you can have a screenshot, but you do not have the authority to trade it, and nobody's going to pay for you, because it's not backed by that digital series of code. Legal challenges are arising anytime that people are interacting with each other. People get married, there's a divorce. People get joint ventures, there will be disputes. People will become business partners, we will have conflicts. There are friendships, there are splitting. So it means whenever people are together, connection is also the ground for conflicts. And that's why legal professionals and lawyers are also very much required to have this knowledge and to be educated, to be helpful for the people who are on the platform, as creator, as collector, as curator, or whoever. Because these people, normally the artists, I mean creators or athletes who are entering the market, they are lacking the knowledge. They do not have the business acumen, the legal acumen. They're just creating the work and they just think, this is a market, I do my art, and then it's our job to secure the protection here. I give you one real example and then we just go to the discussion. Maybe you recognize me. That's a 3D monument of myself. A digital art. It's not a normal, let's say, sculpture, statue, which is done by one of the best 3D artists and animators in the world, who has been doing also the cover for Eminem. And now in collaboration with him, I also started like doing some projects, because I believe that if we want to advise people or help people in an area, we need to have a skin in the game as well. And for me, a lawyer by profession, but an artist by heart, as I just started entering the world of NFTs, I could not just stop there being the lawyer. I became also the creator, I became the collector, and I became the connector and also the curator. I have already curated 2-3 projects for like musicians and superstars and a star athlete as well last year. And I take the pride in having success in both of those projects. And then I started creating my own works. But how we did it, where I just brought up the impersonification of myself, the diverse different sides of my character, for example. And I'm just mentioning this example for you guys also to get a little closer to this concept of NFTs, that it's not just something, just a digital art, we just can put some codes together and then you sell it. There are a lot of these artworks that are extremely personal. They have a story behind them. They have a mission, for example, maybe they're following a cause or a charity or fundraising stuff or a business support or a project. So this one is going to be a project. And different sides of my personal character, for example, the warrior, the nerd, the wild one, the crazy one, the connector, the social person. So we brought these few aspects of my person and we created it in different time tranches. In the past, in the present, and in the future, that makes it even more exciting because I don't know whether I will be a DJ in future or maybe, I don't know, a songwriter or still a lawyer or whatever. So we brought up the warrior of the past. It's still my 3D monument, but with the grown and with the outfit of that time and that character, the warrior of the present, for example. Suddenly the whole game changed. It looks like, but a lot of people were saying also, why warriors? We have enough wars in the world. I said, exactly, that's why I brought this paradox. And the message of this NFT, if you just go to the collection and check it out, it's on foundation.app actually. The mission is, it's saying just one sentence, and that is, the only noble war is the war within. If you lead yourself, if you win the war within yourself, there will be no war outside. All these people in the world that they are running aggressions and wars, if they cure themselves or their character or a personal background, everywhere we would have peace. So the message was this. And of course the future one, which is also filled in with codes, etc. And then my nerdy side came as well, with a big passion for astronomy and also philosophy, and but these are all animated as well, so very, let's say, sophisticated work of arts, digital arts. It's me in the present, still dealing with legal stuff and legal, let's say, folders, and at the same time having my metaverse glasses on, looking into the future. And then in the future, of course, maybe I'm living in another planet, but I'm still carrying my rose from the Earth metaphor, the Little Prince. So yeah, now let's check legal and compliance issues. Ownership, authenticity, valuation. Who's to say how much is this artwork? Who's to say if the price is fair or not? Who's to say, whose risk is this when I'm buying this and it's a fake work? Then we come to the IP sides. Who's to say, this work was not done by me, but by X, but this person is anonymous. I don't want to share my data. You see, now we're already tapping in different areas of legal and compliance issues. Talking about data privacy and protection, as NFT and metaverse and gaming and the whole digital world, they're all going hand in hand with the same currency. They're all using digital currencies. But metaverse as a world which is underlined by data and by codes, so it's not a universe, it's a metaverse, it's backed by data. It has its own risks and challenges as well. A lot of brands, a lot of businesses are now shifting into the metaverse. A lot of people and leaders and celebrities or like high-level characters, they're creating their avatars as well. They have been doing it already. So that world, the real estate, for example, ownership is a huge issue for investment and at the same time a challenge with regards to the risks of legal and compliance sides. And business, of course, how are they profitable and how their profits are backed by proper legal and compliance protection. Let's go to the metaverse side because NFTs are also a part. They're all going hand in hand. And the metaverse as a world parallel to the universe, which is a reality anyways, and which is coming anyways, and which is becoming also a part of our normal verse side, but it is not free of the challenges and problems. So with this, I would like to invite Sarah to give us a tour in the data protection and privacy in the metaverse. And you can also give me a round of applause.
Wonderful. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to ask you a quick question. Have you ever asked yourself why, as human beings, we need to understand each other's? The reason, the answer to this question resides on the fact that humans, compared to any other species, we have the ability to hide our emotions or to lie about our mental states. And therefore, we understood quite quickly that if we wanted to understand each other's, we had to interpret the behavior of others. We start to analyze the way you talk, your facial expressions, the way you move, and we started to collect more and more information about each other because if we were able to understand and identify the other person, then we could connect. And if we can connect, then we can socialize. And as human beings, if we can socialize, we can survive. So we start to collect more information, and the fact that we wanted to know way more about our peers put our own privacy at risk. And I think we are all very familiar with the privacy scandals, and it was a very interesting question. How far are we willing to give information about ourselves to make sure that our peers understand us? And did we reach the amount of data that we are okay to display just to fulfill this need? So with the emergence of the metaverse, I think this question became crucial because the thing is we will collect even more information. And the technology that is going to enable us to enter to the metaverse is going to be able to access the last piece of information that remains today private. So my name is Sarah Levasseur. I'm a privacy legal counsel, and my goal today is to bring you awareness about metaverse, digital identity, and brand hacking. So, identity. What is an identity? An identity is composed of different attributes. We call it in the privacy world personal data. The last years, with the development of internet and the technology, we started gradually accepting the fact that we would give more and more information to access some services or certain products. And rapidly, we just say, okay, we are going to give you my name, my surname, my date of birth, and so on. Who would have believed 20 years ago that we would have been comfortable to share our biometric data to just unlock our phone? So we continue to have this question because I have something more intrusive in the metaverse. And I have a question for you right now. Will you be comfortable with the idea to wear a device, for example, who can, I don't know, access your brainwave patterns, Or your pupil dilatation. Will you be comfortable to wear a glove, able to capture your heartbeats? Or, I don't know, something like, yeah, your body temperature. Will you be able to trade this personal information? Will give directly insight of your brain, but also about your thoughts and emotion to big tech companies in exchange to a better experience, a better service, or even, I don't know, a promise of a better connection with your peers. Well, this set of data has a name, and it's called biometric psychographic data. So what is this? So biometric psychography data are composed of two elements, anatomical and also behavioral data. And basically, they are enabling the possibility to understand your mental state, your physical state, and your emotional state. I know it's a bit like a new concept for you, so let me give you maybe an example. So now, how we know it is called static privacy. So for example, if I have my fingertips to connect on my iPhone because I don't have the last version of the iPhone, is way too expensive for me. So if I use my fingertip, this picture allows me to connect to my accounts and to identify me as a person. In the metaverse, psychographic data are going to be able to understand your reaction to a certain stimuli at a certain period of time, which means that the attributes who defines your identity, who you are as a person, is going to evaluate. So I see that it's a very, very complicated topic for everyone, especially if you're not in the privacy world. So maybe it's going to be a bit more actual if I share a case study of something which is already happening.
Hi, it's me again. I think it's time for me to take over. Now that we all have been onboarding with the concept of biometric psychographic data, I think we need a concrete example. So let's proceed together. As you might know, in the future, the way you will be immersed in the metaverse will be done through devices able to understand your thoughts and your cognitive loads. As an example, the company Neurable is currently developing a software which enables you to control devices by just using your minds. Crazy, right? But how does it work? Neurable is using an algorithm system that enables them to understand the user intent. By using a virtual reality device and a campus sensor, the brain activity can be recorded and the software can interpret the neural data to create the action. And for one concrete application, this technology could be used for. The Neurable technology could be associated with big tech companies to create headphones which could capture your brain activity and reach you data and insight to help you focusing or building better habits. From choosing the type of music or monitoring your brain activities to send it directly to your doctor, this technology could support people with disabilities and simplify drastically our lifestyle. But the real question is, are you ready for it? Let's talk about it in the real world.
Okay, so I take over because my avatar is fun, but yeah, it's time for me to take over. So I hope now you have like a concrete example. I know it still seems very futuristic for everyone because yeah, the metaverse is still something that, oh my God, it's like the buzzword, but we don't exactly know what it means. So I'm going to focus on what is happening today. And I think we are all familiar with the platform TikTok, either because you are a user or depending on your age, because your children are using it. So I'm just going to invite you to read the privacy notice. They're saying inside of it that they are already collecting your keystroke patterns without consent and automatically. Keystroke pattern, so it's your ability to write down on your computer, and basically it has been demonstrated that just with the collection of this data, we can be identified. So imagine in the future, which is actually happening already, obviously I see you already have like some companies who are already accessing our brain with devices. Will you be comfortable with the idea that this information might not be collected without your information or without your consent? I'm not sure. So the thing is, when we are talking about this information, we have a gap. I would love to say that as a GDPR take over and he knows what he's doing and we are all super secure about it, but the reality is like when you are opening access to your brain, you just open a Pandora box. And privacy is the opposite, is the ability and the right to know like what type of data are going to be personal and which one are you going to be comfortable to share. So when you are accessing your brain, it's the opposite, because you cannot control your thoughts, you cannot control your emotion, you cannot control your reaction. So the type of data that we are talking about don't have any control. But okay, now we are going to be a bit more technical. We said, okay, when we are talking about personal data, we all know about the GDPR. I hope we all heard about it, at least in your country, or you all put a clause inside of them to protect your personal data. So let's go to the GDPR and let's see if we have protection here. The first question that I'm going to ask myself is brain data, personal data? I would say, yeah, of course, I mean, come on, it's just about myself. The real answer is not necessary, because not all your brain patterns are going to be able to retrieve information to identify you. So it means that some time of your personal data are going to be considered as data. And if they are just data, it means they're not protected at all by the GDPR, and companies can do more or less what they want. And if you have like a good IT service and a good legal counsel, maybe they're going to say, okay, let's try to anonymize this data, you know, let's try to clean them and do something. But we all know that nowadays it's possible to always re-identify those data. So basically, first of all, we are not always protected by the GDPR just by the nature of data that we are collecting. But let's be positive and let's say like, okay, Sarah, please, it's going to be personal data. The second thing that you are going to ask yourself, I mean, we are talking about our brain, personal data, we are going to be able to understand your thoughts and your emotions. So the question is, on this one, can we have special category data protection? Sensitive data, it's called. It's by the Article 9 of the GDPR. The answer is, again, not necessary, sadly. Because if, for example, these brain waves can explain a pathology, like you are sick, you have like, I don't know, like Alzheimer, for example, yes, this information are going to be able to identify like a disease, and therefore they can be protected under his data. But what about the others, like your emotions or your thoughts, or the data that are collected via neurable technology? Are they considered as biometric data? Maybe, if they are allowing yourself to, for example, identify you via a biometric tool, but the one who are just explaining your focus or how you sleep, can they be biometric data? Actually not. So it means that they are going to be just considered as personal data. And if they are just considered as personal data, it means that by default they can be processed and without your consent. Because you can use another legal basis such as performance of the contract, or even worse, legitimate interest of the company. So I'm not entirely sure that we all want to let companies just have access to our brain based on this legitimate interest. So let's say, okay, Sarah, we can explain in a certain way that it's a sensitive data. Then we go back to the principle, you are not supposed to process my data when they are sensitive. Good. The thing is, like we all know as lawyers, that any principle always have exceptions. I'm not going to say all the exceptions of the GDPR, but I'm going to focus on one which is particularly relevant for the metaverse. And it's called for commercial purposes. And if you are processing personal data for commercial purposes, your consents need to have some attributes. But sadly, again, when we are talking about brain data, it cannot be met, because how can you have a freely given consent in the metaverse? Impossible, because basically the technology that we are going to be enabled to project me as an avatar in the technology might require the usage of my brain data to work. So how can I say freely that I'm okay with it? Because if I don't say yes, I cannot enter the experience. The second one, informed and unambiguous. Which one of you already read any notice or any device information? Personally, I never done it, and if I done it, I'm not sure I will understand it, so it's not possible. And specific. How can you be sure that you are going to collect just the right amount of brain information to fulfill your purposes? It's impossible, because we cannot segment it what we have in our brain. So basically, we cannot even rely on consent. And we all agree, as lawyers, that we are talking about the most sensitive type of information, and still they don't have the maximum and stricter regime of protection allowed by the GDPR. So, as I always say to my clients, We don't have problems, we only have solutions. And as lawyers and as consultants or whatever your profession is, your role is to foresee what is going to happen. So, solutions. First one, GDPR. It can be sometimes useful. We still already have some tools existing. The first one is privacy by design and human rights. I think it's a combination that we should start to have even more in our assessments. So privacy by design, I don't know if you are familiar with it, but basically it's the idea that every time that you are constructing something, you need to have principle of the GDPR in mind. So it will allow, for example, manufacturers, when they are going to design these devices, to make sure that the user, so ourselves or your clients, are going to develop something that the person is going to understand how the data are going to be processed. And if you put the human rights at the center of it, then we might try to understand like a solution. We will not be too attentive for the data subject. The second one is mental data privacy impact assessment. So data privacy impact assessment, if you are like in the privacy field, is something that you always need to conduct when you are processing personal data which are high risk. And here it's just a focus on this type of technology. And if you are conducting this kind of assessments, the good part is like if you have questions, you can always return to your authority for guidance. And then I have two new tools or two new solutions who are maybe a bit more controversial for lawyers. The first one is visual contract and policy. So maybe it's because it's a generation, but actually I still don't understand why we are still drafting policies or even contracts of thousands of pages that no one understands or reads, or only the person who drafted it, where we are talking about something which is going to be in a 3D environment. Why are we still putting everything in writing where the Gen Z, so the ones who are going to enter the metaverse, the first ones, and they are the ones who are going to be more vulnerable? Why are we still drafting policies when they are just consuming the information with video or with photography? So I'm advocating to the fact that the way that we are doing law nowadays is not suitable with the way that we are going to interact in the new world. So we need to develop and change our way that we are sharing the information to make sure that the information is going to be correctly displayed. The last one is neurolaw. And for that, I have a question for you. Do you think it's something that I just came out of my mouth, or do you think it's already existing? Does not exist? Exist, okay. Where? Which country is already like proposing something about neurolaw in its constitution? Do you have any idea? Suspense. No. So actually it's Chile. I was also surprised about it when I done this presentation, but Chile is actually like already proposing something in their constitution to protect neurolaw and neural rights. So I know that most of the time when we are talking about the metaverse and the privacy inside of it, we say like, oh yeah, it's just something which will happen someday, or I don't see exactly when it's gonna arrive. But actually we already see like in the legislation, legal framework, but also like just in our day-to-day activity, that is already happening. So I hope that today I just plant a seed in your heads without accessing your thoughts. And yeah, sensibilize the fact that we, as lawyers, as legal counsel, as consultants, whatever the field you are, we all have a very big and important responsibility to rebuild a trustworthy digital world for the next generation. So it's time for that lawyers stop just being like lawyers and be like proactive in their way of advising their clients with solutions and concrete ideas for them. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I mean, that's how you can, let's say, funify or gamify complex issues and bring it really into the light, make it more accessible and understandable. Thank you so much. I personally enjoyed it a lot. I'm very happy that I have shared this panel with you, ladies. We are, yes, time-wise, it's a little bit critical, and we're sorry for that. We started also pretty late due to some technical issues, but I think, I hope it was worth it for you until now to listen. So can you cope with one more awesome presentation? Yes! Okay, I think now you need to do it. So So IP, intellectual property challenges, right? Because all these brands and the businesses which are entering this market, which are entering the metaverse, apart from the data protection and the privacy problems, there will be also the brand protection. Who was talking about brand and trademark? I think it's Ayman, who's just leaving us. I know. I just wanted to show I'm seeing everything. I mean, there were like a few of you were talking about trademark, intellectual property issues. So let us have a quick insight from our awesome Liat. Thank you so much, and let's give her a big round of applause.
Hi, everybody. Well, I'm going to be short and brief because I had 1 hour to prepare for this. But I'm going to talk a little bit about IP, but in the metaverse. Intellectual property, well, I like it very much because I deal with it. But everyone in this room has intellectual property. Everyone here, which means all of your clients do as well. Even if it's your work, your creations, if you write a statement of claim, it's copyright protected. If you took a picture of your child yesterday, it's a work and it's copyright protected. So nobody can use that. If you've taken a picture of the weather and you put it on Facebook, it's copyright protected. Nobody can use it, commercialize it. It's just against the law. So everybody has IP. So you have to know the basics. And when it comes to metaverse, it's even more complex because intellectual property is not physical, which means it also exists in the metaverse. So if you have a reputation, your firm's reputation, that's intellectual property. What happens if someone badmouths your firm in the metaverse? Can you sue them for that? Which court is going to deal with it? Where are you going to sue them? Okay, so a lot of questions arise. Now, when you think about it, we've talked before about wars. When you think about it, intellectual property is the one asset in the world no war has ever been able to eliminate. Okay? Intellectual property, technology, our minds, our thoughts, our creations, our brands, our reputations, all of these continue to exist. Even after all world wars, it's still going forward, it's still there. So when we talk about physical things, that's very easy. If I have a table here, it's not in the metaverse. But my reputation, that's also in the metaverse. It's the same asset. It's here and it's there. Same thing. So what happens when somebody damages my asset in the metaverse? What am I supposed to do? And the consequences are in the real world. There was a case of a woman raped in the metaverse, okay? It's not the real world, right? Nobody touched her. But she was so harmed, she needed emotional and psychological care, right? Who's gonna sue these people? It's a question. In this case, we have more questions than answers, unfortunately. But all of your intellectual assets also exist in the metaverse. And some of these assets are registrable, which means you register them. For example, if you have a brand, your firm logo, or your client's trademarks, they need to be registered. And when they're registered, you need to classify the criteria, the classification of the goods or services. And the EU IPO, which is in charge of trademark registrations, they published guidelines which say that all of the goods, the virtual goods, are classified in Class 9, which is downloadable programs. So if I sell a shirt and I want to protect my brand, in the real world, I classify it in class number 25, which is clothing. If I want to protect it in the metaverse, I need to classify it in class 9, which is downloadable programs. That's a problem. That's a problem. That's a big problem, because if you're a Nike or other well-known trademark owner, then you don't have a problem. You have the budget. You can go and file it. What happens if you're not a well-known trademark? Should I advise all of my clients now to go ahead and register their trademarks in Class 9? It's a question. What happens if, let's take Harmis example. It's a chain that sells art crafts, right, handmade. They're not interested in the metaverse. They never sold there. They're not planning on selling there. They don't care about the metaverse, right? So obviously they didn't register their trademark there. But in the metaverse, somebody started selling products under their trademark. What are they supposed to do now? It's a question, because the consequences, the damages are in the real world, okay? What if somebody's selling fake goods in the metaverse? And I'm the trademark owner in the real world. Can I sue them? It's a question. We don't have a lot of case studies, unfortunately, but we do need to address it because our clients are addressing it, and because our clients are going to come to us with these type of problems. And obviously, they're expecting us to give them solutions. You know, in Hebrew, there's a joke. What's the difference between a lawyer and a doctor? Anybody know? With a doctor, you go with a headache and you come home with your headache. With a lawyer, you come with a headache and you expect to leave it there. He needs to solve all your problems. That's why you pay him. So telling a client, well, it's a new thing, nobody really knows, you know, that's really not an option for us as lawyers. So we need to address these type of things. Now, for trademarks, for example, I could offer that t-shirt owner a few classes. I could tell him, well, let's just register it in Class 9, downloadable virtual goods, Class 35, retail store services, right? And then entertainment services maybe, online non-downloadable virtual goods, financial services. Where is the problem? The problem is that each classification costs money. So the client is going to tell you, well, if I don't have to spend it, don't tell me to spend it. Okay? I'm not, you know, I have limited budget. So this is a problem we're going to have to address, because case law, we don't have a lot of case law, but we do know that registrations in the real world do not extend to the virtual world, which means that if I have a trademark covering clothing in the real world, and somebody sold my t-shirt in the metaverse with my brand on it, I can't sue him. And that's a problem, because the consequences, like I said, are a lot of times in the real world. So if you're a big company and you have unlimited budget, like Meta, that may be fine. I don't know if some of you heard, there are a few lawsuits now in the US, Meta, for the Meta trademark. Turns out that Mark Zuckerberg, when he invented Meta, he either didn't search or didn't care. I don't know. These, you know, they're so big that it might have been, I don't care, let's just go ahead with it. And it turns out other people had this trademark registered in the right classes, so they're suing him. So I'm not sure that he doesn't sleep at night, okay? Because that kind of companies, you know, you could also buy other people, smaller companies if you need to. If you can't find them, you just buy them. That's also an option. But for other people, other companies, other clients, this is a real problem. And we need to really take this into account. One more thing I would like to, for you to think about is exhaustion rights. We talked about it before. For example, copyrights. Once I create a product, right, I have my rights. But these rights are exhausted when people want to sell it again. Okay, so if I buy a table, I pay for it. It goes to the creator, whoever invented it, right? And then if I want to keep selling it to other people, I don't have to pay anything to the creator, except for NFTs, like you said before. What happens in the metaverse? I bought something. Do I need to pay royalties to anybody? Not sure. Do exhaustion rights, are they also applicable in the metaverse? We're not so sure. How about license agreements? If I have a brand and my client has a brand and he has a license agreement, do I need to tell all of my clients now that they need to refresh their license agreements and add, you can sell these products or you can use this trademark in US, China, oh, and the metaverse? Do we need to go through all of our license agreements now? That's a good question. So my suggestion is, like you say, with lawyers, we don't take chances, just add it anyway. As long as it doesn't cost money to the client, let's do it and let's put it anywhere we need to. But we should be aware of that. A lot of lawyers are hiding a little bit from all of this metaverse issues in world, and that's okay. But once the client will come with a problem, like I said, we can't tell them this is not something we do. It's just not a possibility. So we do need to understand this world, and we do need to follow case laws, at least the big ones, to know how we're going to draft agreements, how we're going to prepare lawsuits, how we're going to litigate crimes that are happening in the metaverse, okay, or other commercial disputes. If you're doing arbitration or mediation, what happens if the dispute is in the metaverse? The consequences can be in real life. These are all things that we need to address. So that was me. I told you it was going to be short, but anyway, these are just things that we need to think about. Yeah.
We opened the question and answer right now. If you just close it. First, she needs an applause, actually, just to because she really joined us on short notice, and we appreciate you, Leah. Thank you so much. It was a little bit of a long session, and we apologize for that, and especially for the late start. But I think each one of us tried really to shed some light into this a little less known in the legal industry topics, especially the metaverse, decentralization, and NFTs. Unfortunately, we were missing that other speaker who was also supposed to cover DAOs, but hopefully for the next time. So I think now we will forget about the panel discussion, and instead we devote those few minutes to our amazing audience for a few questions, so that we're able to close it in the next 3-4 minutes, if possible. And of course, now maybe you were first with your question. I just addressed 2-3 things before we go also to your question, and then we would be good to close, but now it's you.
Hi.
Hi there, yeah, thank you for that. That was really great. And I agree, it's really difficult, especially with trademarks, because now you have to, as you say, put it in category 9. And that is a big problem, as you say, for people who have clothing ranges, who registered it in shoes, and now it's shoes in the metaverse, and what the hell do you do? In the UK, we have passing off, which means that if you don't have a trademark registered, you can still rely on the fact that you've got goodwill in a brand. Does that translate in your jurisdiction, or is that something that's not available? Or even a concept that is available?
Well, if you, also in Israeli law, we have these kind of claims. I mean, sometimes you have clients who didn't register their trademark and somebody copied them. So we don't use the trademark, laws and regulations. We go to other laws, but they're not as strong as trademark. For example, in Israel, if you have a claim which you can sue someone, but you need to show evidence that they had a reputation and that the consumers may be confused and so on. And that's hard to prove. It's difficult to prove. Sometimes you can prove it. Sometimes I tell my clients, you know what, next time somebody thinks that you're a different store, record it, or ask him to write something about it so we can prove it in court. But in Trademark, you don't need all of that. In trademark, once you have a trademark registration, somebody uses, very easy. File suit, infringement, you get your, your damages, everything is okay. It's much more easier. So.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Any more questions?
Yeah, whatever about IPs and data protection, of course.
And all of you should go register your trademarks.
It's getting serious.
Okay, your logos, your firms.
But why don't you tell them maybe to register those things in the real world does not mean that it's also registered in the metaverse, right?
It's
So
not
that is
extend.
actually something, let's say, a last caveat. Please. Do you, yeah, maybe the mic.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
That's relevant to the question I wanted to ask. How easy is it to register a trademark, especially that there's so many jurisdictions, as just mentioned, and now I think with Brexit, I think the EU registration in Alicante, if I'm not mistaken, will change. I don't know if it's still, if you register in the EU, will you be protected under UK law? Also, the same question, do you have to register in China, America, Middle East, North, South, East, West? Where shall I register my trademark if I want to be a success?
That's a very good question. About the UK, I think he can answer it also. That's a very good question. Well, basically, I always tell my clients, register your trademarks wherever you think somebody's going to compete with you and it's going to hurt you because it costs money. But to answer your question, it's very easy technically to register a trademark. It's filing a form, really. You need a lawyer to estimate chances of registration, preliminary search, list of goods, so you don't get formality refusal, stuff like that. As long as your trademark is not generic or descriptive, or somebody else registered it before you, and it's pretty easy. Now, you talked about different countries, so we have these international treaties. This is also a problem with the metaverse. What happens if you classify it in, let's do it, in a certain class, and you claim priority, you filed in a different country, and they don't recognize it? What happens if the EU and US says, virtual goods is only class 9, and China says, well, you know what? Virtual goods is for the original class. For example, clothing, 25. You just add also virtual. What happens when you need to use those international treaties? I mean, that could be a mess globally. So that's, if you ask me, WIPO, right, the World Intellectual Property Organization in Switzerland, they're going to have to come up with something that will harmonize this registration classes. Otherwise, it's going to be a huge mess for us and for our clients.
Great. So just one last question. So do you recommend, you advise that we should, once registering the trademark, we should include as many classes as possible, or obviously considering the costs, etc.?
Well,
to cover ourselves.
Yeah, in many countries you have non-use period of time. So if you register a trademark, for example, I can register my firm in clothing, but if I don't use it in clothing for a few years, then it could be subject to cancellation by third parties. But other than that, it's a budget issue because each class costs more money. And you have 45 classes, so if you're not a big company, you're going to file only the specific classes you're actually using.
Many
Thank
thanks.
you so much.
Toda rabba.
Thank you so much. Any question with regards to data privacy?
I would like to
That's
ask.
good. Yeah, please. Because I think one subject, I mean, before maybe the question, just to tap on that as well, especially, I mean, there was like a real case on March 3rd this year. OpenSea has started to like systematically exclude and ban the users. I mean, OpenSea is, as I said, the major NFT marketplace platform, started to systematically ban all the users from sanctioned countries. And actually, they make a largest part of the NFT community. I mean, people from Iran, from Cuba, from Syria, and then afterwards, Russia was subject to sanctions as well. And they had to like somehow throw out millions of, let's say, assets. And they were like thousands of users. And there was this claim coming up by the users, how did you track us? Is it not? So suddenly the decentralization was versus the whole KYC and the data storage and processing. And so they were like both like standing there, and OpenSea was referring to their terms and conditions by saying, oh, we are not allowed to have users with locations in the sanctioned countries. But as she said, who's reading those? And all the users, I mean, they're not lawyers. Even us, we normally don't. So still, you don't know. You should go to OFAC. You should go to, whom shall you sue where? OpenSea is an American company, is a US company, yes. They're not allowed to violate sanctions, but at the same time you say, you're not a centralized company, so you should not comply with sanctions. It's decentralized, it's for everyone. There is still a lot to be clarified and to be maybe justified and to be rectified in these spaces. Please go ahead.
And how can they have access? Because normally when you sign up for something, you go and like give them access to this and to that and to this. And I specifically decline location questions because I'm still a bit like, I don't like that. So like, how does that work for an entire country? Because everybody's blacked out, like everybody.
Correct. I mean, for them, the argument or the answer was, yeah, they backtracked the IP that the users were using, and that opened door for circumvention again. So now most of the Iranian users, they are using IPs from Denmark, from Switzerland, from Poland. So, as I said, crisis makes creative, unfortunately. And if they exclude you, not upon like legitimate or justified reasons, people try to get creative and say, this is a part of my market as well. And the data were transferred somehow from the wallets, from the MetaMask, from the Coinbase, and then they admitted also that they are not really complying with the decentralized, let's say, model, so that they have already collected. Because when we open the wallets, yes, they identify us. So it comes also with the face identification and also with like bank statements, address, and everything. But somehow there is a promise that this is just really for the KYCs because we want to protect you from criminals here. But then afterwards, they were used against you to ban you out of the platform. And that was a big conflict and issue, that how MetaMask was allowed to disclose those data to OpenSea, and why OpenSea is now backtracking our IP. What kind of decentralization is that? So the trend is there, but the culture is not there yet. So
thank you.
Absolutely. Sorry.
I want to give one example, because studies show that people are motivated, among other things, by fear. So I'll give you a hypothetical case of privacy, okay? What if one of your employers in the firm puts a disk on key, gets all your data about your clients, goes to another company, okay, or as a freelancer, and started using that data, for example, sending your clients emails with offering them the same services for less prices, okay? In the real world, easy. Right? You go and you sue them. You sue them for unauthorized use, right, of your data, your database. What happens when he publishes this or uses this in the metaverse? What happens to my data?
I think on this kind of topic, I always believe that it's not really like an issue, actually. Because we always say that, it's new problematics, but actually you already said it, like if it's already happening in the real world, why this rule will not be applicable in the virtual world? The only thing that in a privacy is where we have a real changes with the decentralization is where the data are coming from and where they go. Because what we have in Europe right now, we really try to have a protection in Europe for the data subject. We really try to keep all the data inside, because we know that some countries like China, for example, or also the US, if our data are there, we would not have like the same level of protection. But if everything is decentralized, we cannot really like track where the data is going to be shipped or transferred. So that's more like the real issue is like nowadays we do this transfer impact assessments or data sharing agreements. But are we going to use the location of your avatar as a starting point of like the sharing, or is it going to be you as a user, or is it going where the server is or the platform? So all these questions are not answered yet. And I think it's more like on this kind of old school way, let's say, to protect that we need to kind of come out with potential solutions. But for me, what is happening now, also like the fact that we are going to have more information, possibility to have your identity stolen, I mean, that's already something that happened in the real world. So for me, yeah, the problematics are here, just we need to adapt the legal framework to more like digital issues. But yeah, that's my own view on this.
So let's say burning question would be whom to sue where?
Yeah, we're litigators, right?
Very easy. I mean, who is the subject and what is the jurisdiction? And it's still not clarified. And I mean, you say, yeah, okay, this company is based in the US, or maybe this fraudulent or this criminal is based in the UK, but where to sue them and how, on what ground? Because centralized courts or judiciaries are somehow not really connected to the decentralized stuff, and then there's always this issue still. They say, oh, this company is based where, or maybe this this person that maybe owns or creates or collects or stole this work. You don't know who he is. So that's the decentralization can be totally based on the anonymity. And then there's like this one concept of how we can establish accountability versus anonymity. What is the solution? So you know, you just have a wallet number. Or the smart contracts, yes, they are just the foundation for all these transactions. But the thing is, smart contracts are not as smart that the name says. They're not smart at all. Because at the same time, they are not revisable, reversible, and they cannot be canceled. And they cannot be broken, actually, because it just goes on the blockchain automatically. The transactions just goes. So you cannot even refer to something as a mistake or so. You purchase something, you add, or maybe you delete 1 0 or 2 zeros, the transaction is valid. There is no way back. Unless that person is so like morally strong that he just transfer back the token and say, sorry, that was a mistake, instead of 300 ETH. I bought it for 3 ETH, and it was a real case last year, November, where a CryptoPunk was sold for 3 ETH instead of 300. And we're talking about millions, and I was gone.
So we have another question over here. Can you ask?
Please, let's go, and then
all right, here you go.
We close this
Yeah,
imaginary
thanks.
session.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just interested to know. There's been a lot of sort of what if questions and when. I think since Mark Zuckerberg's sort of inception of what would be the metaverse release within Facebook, I can't remember how many months ago that was now, but I'd just be keen to know, sort of across the legal professions, what they envisaged that the timelines would look like for starting to really implement some of these procedures, these policies, and when we should really be setting ourselves up to be addressing these, you know, these IP conversations. I wanted to understand that since the metaverse, that release, how much further have we got? And when do you expect to be making some of these changes, I suppose the question. Thank you.
Well, that's a tricky question. Like you said, we have more questions than answers. But if you ask me, you have 0 time. We're already there. You need to take into account the metaverse in every case you represent, in every agreement you write. If you write a license agreement now for one of your clients, you should put in a clause saying what happens if he uses that in the metaverse. I mean, we're already there. We don't have time to study this new world, right? If you ask my children, they're already there a long time ago, you know. For them, it's very natural, and it's the fact that we are not aware of it, that's something very weird for them. Like, where are you coming from, you know? So we don't have time. And wherever it doesn't cost you money, put it in there. Take it into account. Every agreement, every case, everywhere you can, think of also the metaverse. What happens if somebody would take my data on the metaverse? What happens if someone infringes my rights in the metaverse? it needs to be in mind all the time because we don't have time. Our children are already there. What happens if somebody commits a crime against one of our children in the metaverse? I mean, the
And that's real.
consequences are in the real world. We need to protect them.
And I will just add just one data, actually. You have like a good report from Gartner who demonstrates that by 2025, 25% of the population will spend at least 1 hour in the metaverse. So, I mean, it's like tomorrow. And then by 2030, they are aiming to have like the complete solution of what we are envisioning right now. So, I mean, it's already happening, but the mature solution is really like close by. So it's happening. It's already there.
That's great.
We don't
yeah.
mean to scare you, but we do. Okay.
I'm scared. Thanks. No, that's really interesting. It was the data that that by 2025, this is how much time they're expecting people to be spending in the metaverse.
I think at least I'm going to talk with the clients that I see. You already have like companies who are entering the metaverse. Like even my own company, we are like at Capgemini. We already have like onboarding in the metaverse for like new joiners. I think Accenture is also very proactive on this type of topic. All companies are trying to enter it, so it's already like a topic. Like the future of work is what we call for the metaverse, like for the education field, for the health sector as well. So you already see a lot of initiatives. Of course, not everybody is like disclosing about it because it's still like an advantage for their competitors. But it's already something that everybody who can, money there. I mean, it's going to have so much impact on our economy. And I think with the COVID, but also like the Russian crisis, we are going to try to find other way of dealing with each other. So it's the future because also the new generation, and I think that's how I explain why the metaverse is like you always need to understand why it came now. I think it's just because the young generation is not trusting any institution, any classical bank, or so for them, if they want to interact and have community, they want to enter like a certain metaverse. And metaverse is not just one world, it's different worlds. So if you doesn't fit the meta way of thinking or behaving, know that you can have alternatives. And I think that's the only thing that is like blocking right now is more the technology side. And the fact that cybersecurity experts or privacy experts need to really like secure. And then lawyers need to also have like a real understanding on how it's going to regulate. But
Guys, we really
one more sentence, one last sentence.
Okay.
I'll just give you the example of the AI, okay? In patents, for example, inventions were created by machines. AI created inventions. And the world asked itself, can a machine be an inventor, listed as an inventor of a creation, of an invention? And what happened is the world split into two. Some countries said, yeah, no problem, we can list as an inventor a machine, call it whatever you want, call it robot, doesn't matter. And the other half of the world said, no way, it's not a legal entity, we don't recognize it, so only the machine owner would be the inventor. Now, I estimate that what's going to happen in the metaverse is pretty much the same. Some countries will say, the avatar is a legal entity, you can sue them. And some will say, no way, it's not a legal entity, we're going to sue the one who created the avatar, and so on. So, in other words, we're heading for a big mess.
Thank you. I think this was worth it now to still mention it. Okay, let's just come to this closing. Thank you, Leah. This was really awesome. And maybe I add one sentence to this, as you just mentioned now in the metaverse, is this creating the same problem also these days in NFTs, because a lot of creators, they are also leveraging AI to create artworks, and then it already putting the term NFT in as question. Say non-fungible token, who created this? Where is the authentication? Because this was an AI program who created this and not the real creator or artist. So who is the creator? If this work is a copy, whom shall we sue? The creator can say that was AI, it was not me. And the vice versa is just the risks. I mean, who is liable? Whose risk is this? Who shall you sue? And again, where? let alone the financial crimes, etc. It's a whole different topic that we can talk about. Insurances, boo, I think some big insurance companies are entering as well. Asset protection, I mean, banks are dealing, wallet securities. It was an awesome session that we had also before lunch. And of course, we spoke about jurisdiction and applicable laws. Again, when you don't know whom to sue, where, what law is applicable, and where, with the smart contracts are not necessarily containing those kind of stuff. And yeah, is regulation a solution? Yes, some countries came so far. Dubai went in March this year. Switzerland was a pioneer 2020. And then some other countries are maybe following or not, but you cannot stopping this movement. This is just happening. So how far are we, how fast, and where are we going? So I hope this was a useful session for you, despite the delays and technical problems and surprise guests and canceled guests, etc. So if there was any inconvenience, we apologize, but we still did really our best to shed some light into some like a little unclear or moving targets or images now in the legal industry. And you know where to find us, Liat, Sarah, myself, Metaverse data privacy expert now, Metaverse IP expert in everything. No, it's kidding. But you can definitely reach out to each one of us also for questions, or maybe we can have an offline chat about other collaborations or possibilities as well. And education is key at the end of the day. Go learn it. If it doesn't cost you, even if it just costs you time, just put that time in it, because it's going to bring you a lot of benefit and new clients, and helps also the existing clients. Thank you so much for your attention and for your patience. And I think we all deserve a break now. And then I will invite you all back in 15 minutes for the next session, which is also going to be an awesome one. Thank you so much, and enjoy your coffee, and thank you.